Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is a Ukrainian talk show. My name is Sasha Star, and my guest today is Dr. Jonathan Lockwood. Welcome to the show, Jonathan. Well, we'll wait
Here
until
I am.
here I am. Okay, here you are.
It
Excellent.
seems like only yesterday that we were talking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Inside jokes.
Sounds like that again.
Mhm.
So, what's interesting happening in this days? Um, I was listening to a lot of Russian and Ukrainian speaking talk shows with different angles or so on. I looked also at Ukrainian Pravda. And what's interesting there, I found actually the article is in Ukrainian, but it's well translated into English. NATO Secretary General believes Putin is not interested in peace. And the North Atlantic Alliance believes Russia's calculation is flawed and is convinced that Kremlin leader Vladimir Putin is not interested in peace.
Well, it would
Quote,
seem so, given his actions and given the fact that he is seemingly suicidally continuing with this offensive, which is costing Russia exorbitant casualties, not to mention their North Korean allies, which they've roped into assisting them in their invasion. And yet, despite these excessive losses in both material and manpower, Putin is pressing ahead, apparently because he believes that if he just keeps pushing and keeps brandishing his nuclear arsenal and the threat of escalation, that inevitably the West will buckle under and give in to his demands. But at this point, President Trump, to his credit, is showing signs, even in his other actions, that he is in no mood to knuckle under to anyone's demands.
okay, here is a source. European Pravda reporter citing NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Before the start of the alliance ministerial meeting in Brussels on Tuesday, which is today, NATO sees no indication that Russian leader Vladimir Putin is preparing for a ceasefire, Rutte said. The quote, Russia's aggression shows no sign of abating, just the opposite. Putin is ramping up his rhetoric and reckless actions. He is using Ukraine as a testing ground for experimental missiles and is deploying North Korean soldiers in this illegal war, Rutte stated. He emphasized that Putin is not interested in peace, quote. He thinks he can break Ukraine's resolve and ours, but he is wrong, Rutte added, underscoring that aiding Ukraine is its self-defense is in NATO duty. Duty,
Yes.
not preference, but duty.
And interestingly enough, as Ivan has a video available now that he would like to show us, but also Germany's recent trip, delivering more aid to Ukraine, and other members of NATO stepping up to deliver their aid because they recognize their own inherent self-interest in defeating Russia here and forcing Russia to cease its war of aggression against Ukraine. And the price is going to go up. And oddly enough, the outgoing Biden administration's actions in rushing more aid to Ukraine before he leaves office, oddly enough, works in Ukraine's favor, because it gives Ukraine a stronger hand for both resisting Russian aggression in the short term and also setting the stage for giving President Trump a stronger hand in either trying to enforce an armistice or peace deal, or he can simply increase the aid, and he has more flexible options now. Oddly, it's a strange set of circumstances, but the incoming Trump administration will be in a stronger position to deal with the ongoing war in Ukraine. And potentially, I still assert that Ukraine will have an opportunity to launch a counterstroke of its own, which will create a much more favorable condition for peace. And I believe, Yvonne, that I'm going to ask. It says you have a video, I believe, that you think is very useful and lightning, I believe.
Yeah, hello to everyone. We sometimes discuss some lessons from history, and recently it was anniversary of one previous so-called short war, which actually has been a little forgotten on
Would that be a winter war?
yeah, winter war in Finland, but I think it would be great to remind our viewers about this war and how Russia tried to capture Finland in 3 days, like they did again. So let's show this video.
Excellent.
Okay.
Winter War. What would Finns say about Ukrainian resistance? Been there, done that. Yes, the USSR once wanted Finland and came to seize it. Soviets attacked the border and bombed Helsinki. They expected a quick win, having more soldiers and equipment. But Finns accepted the battle. In an occupied border town, Soviets created a puppet Finnish Democratic Republic. Does that sound familiar? The terrain worked against the invaders. But Finns still lacked weapons, so they invented the cocktail for Molotov, for which Ukrainians are eternally grateful. They put up an incredible resistance, yet by the time Allies supplied weapons, Soviet army broke the defense line. Finland was forced to peace and gave up 1/10 of its territory. The Soviets' failed attempt to seize Finland wasn't painting by numbers at all. They lost over 150,000 soldiers in 100 days against a country of less than 4 million people. Now that Ukraine fights against Russia, it's important to learn from the past mistakes and never let the aggressor prevail.
Excellent. As a matter of fact, those Finnish ski troops were really deadly and inflicted casualties on the Russians out of all proportion to their own actual numbers. But it's very instructive, and yes, it is an excellent historical analogy, so that the Ukrainians are far from beaten, and that they have resources, and unlike Finland, this time finally they have an entire alliance coming behind them to their support. And the German Chancellor's recent trip to Ukraine is also indicative of, and he was doing it in relative secrecy, low profile, to keep that aid coming. And that, along with the Biden administration, I am cautiously optimistic that the amount of aid that Ukraine is receiving, along with once President Trump is fully briefed as he comes in and has full access to all classified briefings as well as everything that is currently ongoing, he still has the flexibility of mind to adopt a more aggressive position than people might expect. So it's still up in the air. There is still a great X factor in operation here, and I firmly believe that Ukraine will be able to maintain its freedom, particularly since Zelensky is now offering to establish a peace in exchange for NATO membership. That's not what Russia wants, but they will be willing to a peace agreement if Ukraine were guaranteed membership in NATO, which would be absolute anathema to the Russians.
I would like to remind even more remarkable story than Finland. It's Poland in 1920, where Russia government, young government, decided to overrun and absolutely destroy also young Poland, because Poland was for centuries, not many centuries, but a few, part of Russian Empire. And what's happened is they attacked Poland. They were near Warsaw, and all of a sudden everything changed. And Polish army ran Russian army all the way to Moscow. They were very close actually to take Moscow. And Poland was not assisted by NATO or by United States or anybody. They just did it themselves. So I'm surprised why Ukraine and its Western partners are not having an aim not to win the war, but to destroy Russia, take over Moscow. Why they don't have that goal? I really don't understand that. Especially that in Kursk, it's proved that Russians have no defense lines, nothing. They remember this Wagner group Prigozhin. Remember, he ran all the way from Rostov to near Moscow without almost no opposition. Okay, there was almost no opposition. So,
But I would interject that the Wagner Group had no means of following up its victory, even if they had been able to achieve it.
that's a different story. But
you can't consolidate. But yeah,
nobody was trying to stop him. And we are talking about, for some account, it was like 2,500 soldiers at his disposal. And I think Ukraine, with the help of Western allies, if that would be the goal, unfortunately, West is just not, they don't understand that they are, including United States, infiltrated by Russian special forces, a special agent. They are prepared to do all kind of unfriendly
disinformation.
Not only disinformation, I'm talking about open sabotage and open, like destroying this underwater cables in the Baltic Sea, and many, many, many more. Than a lot of things were prevented already that we don't know of. So this is, for example, South Korea. They declared a martial law. And I think all West and United States, they have to declare martial law and start preparing to real war against Russia. And just tell Putin, get your your people out of Ukraine in the next 72 hours. And if not, we will attack you all the way from all directions. Okay. Interesting what Putin is going to say. I have a little weapons. I have some what to say, Areshnik. I have this, and I have just shove it in your ass. We are going to show you who has real things.
Well, I would assert that given the incoming Trump's administration's attitude and their foreign policy goals, what I've been advocating is the construction, essentially not building any more nuclear weapons, but instead diverting resources to construct the worldwide strategic defense matrix, WISDOM, which would effectively, and also upgrading the Space Force with a space fleet with laser weapons capable of shooting down their nuclear missiles. What that would do, it would neutralize the nuclear arsenals of Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran, and therefore because they would no longer have those weapons of mass destruction to brandish in the face of the West, this would give NATO and the United States much more leverage, along with Ukraine, to force the Russian withdrawal from Ukraine, and then establish essentially a new foundation for strategic stability. With space dominance and the ability to neutralize any nuclear strikes of our adversaries, that is going to be a much more effective means. It prevents further Russian expansion, and it would also, basically like the old containment strategy during the Cold War, George Kennan reckoned that so long as you could prevent the Soviet Union from expanding, eventually it would buckle under the stresses of its own internal contradictions. And history proved Kennan was right.
Well, I think he would be very useful today, because Russia already created very viable alliance with China, North Korea, and Iran. It is a real alliance. They're really helping each other, sending troops and weapons and all kind of, in case of China, the technological help, material help, and so on. So it's already there. It's just expanding. It brings more nations to the BRICS. So now Trump says that BRICS, whatever countries in BRICS or wherever, they will get away from operating in US dollars, and they will be punished with 100% tariffs. Yeah. You tell me, so Russia sent to United States a lot of goods that would be prone to tariffs? Absolutely not. Russia doesn't send anything except for example, uranium, the certain type of uranium is being sent from Russia to United States. So the United States is not going to bring sanctions against the only commodities that it needs from Russia. Very unlikely. Or anybody can put sanctions and put tariffs on Russian oil or gas products. Very unlikely. China is probably the only one of the four that could suffer as a result of this sanctions. But, the idea that the BRICS had been in existence for around 15 years, all of a sudden now, in next 4 years, as Trump will be in power, would be able to create their own currency and start operating it? Very unlikely. So then I even don't understand why Trump even mentioned that as a real possibility that would be punished by certain sanctions and so on. This is really bizarre. I don't. What Trump is doing very well when he keeps his mouth shut. Lately, his popularity is growing and going through the roof because
he's by the way, he's planning to capitalize on that.
Yeah, absolutely. But he has everything what one can ask. He has a House, he has a Senate, he has presidency, he has judiciary, he has everything. I don't know what else he needs. Now it's time.
He will try to get more. If you have a strong hand, he's going to make it stronger, so that he has the freedom of action to act as flexibly as he needs to in order to, in his words, make America great again. And what I would recommend is, I recommended on a previous program, that the United States should seek to become the world's geopolitical balancer, in much the same way that Great Britain was the geopolitical balancer during the 18th and 19th centuries. They can do this. They can actually, in certain respects, reduce American military spending by if they actually follow up with Zelensky's offer to replace American troops with Ukrainian troops in NATO. That would be a possibility. But also, if the United States in turn becomes a 21st century arsenal of democracy, or arsenal of the West, by ramping up its own production of high-tech weaponry that the rest of NATO and others want and need. So there are a wide array of options that the incoming Trump administration will have at its disposal. It remains to be seen whether his new team is up to the task, but we shall see. There are promising signs.
Yeah, we have to first of all get him into office on January 20th.
Yeah, they better not be thinking that the third assassination attempt is going to be the charm. No. I have in mind that with all the best intentions, he just cannot physically deliver on anything before he's sworn into the office. The only one that I saw that actually had an effect was with Mexico, where the Mexican president told those incoming caravans that Mexico would take care of them before they reached the border. And so Trump employed a threat of 25% tariffs against Mexico if they did not help out with stopping those migrant caravans. So that is an example. He has, in certain respects, already been able to exert influence, because our adversaries know that they are not going to be able to bully or mislead Trump. Trump has learned his lesson from his first term, and so this is going to be a very different second term for Trump and for its adversaries and allies. But the rest of the world is learning to take Trump seriously and not try to brush him off as some sort of naive dilettante.
The best thing what he's done recently, our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, visited Mar-a-Lago, and so they had a dinner there and so on. And then at the end of the dinner, Trump asked him to find a good hotel room to stay overnight. So he, like usually he's providing accommodation to his guests after dinner, but not in case of Trudeau. And I think this was very wise decision on Donald Trump, because I think it's almost certain that Trudeau will lose this election in next year. And apparently the reason that the election is not being called before February, because the NDP, it's New Democratic Party, it's third governing party in Canada, it's President Singh. He will have 5-year tenure in February. So if it will be after February, then he will have his government pension. And if it will be election before February, then he may lose his government pension. So therefore, he is, of course, against election.
A little self-interest calculation there.
A little bit, just a touch. But anyway, listen, speaking about government, Ivan, I would like to ask you, I've listened to several programs in the last few days. And do you feel that there is some kind of a growing discontent with Vladimir Zelensky from various angles, for various reasons? And one shouldn't be surprised too much, because when a country is in a war and it's not winning the war and it's not doing as well as population expected, then the leader of that country is number one who should and will take a hit. What's your feeling about it?
It's not great fate for being a leader of a country in state of war. Just remember the situation with in Great Britain and Winston Churchill. The population was not happy with him, but sometimes he had no other choice when making decisions, especially at the moment when Great Britain was left alone fighting with the Nazi Germany when Europe was fallen and the United States didn't enter the war yet. Luckily, Ukraine will not left alone against Russia, but this is one of possible scenarios as well, because if the conditions on which Donald Trump will offer Ukraine peace negotiations with Russia will not be acceptable by Ukrainians, and it's not about President Zelensky, it's about the majority of public opinion in Ukraine, because still Ukrainian population is not accepting the scenario with when Ukraine will leave occupied territories under control of Russia, and it's really a problem because we don't have enough power to liberate these territories in military way. But from another point, occupation is not population is not ready to give these territories to Russia, and of course there may be a scenario when peace negotiations will be available on these conditions. There may be a scenario when peace negotiations will be on Russian conditions, which actually will mean capitulation of Ukraine, because Russian conditions are the same as they had in the beginning of their full-scale invasion. And of course, not Zelensky, not Ukrainian population will not accept such conditions, and we will have to continue the fight without support from United States. This is from one point. From other point, the support from European countries, from some specific European countries, may also be stopped, because in Germany there will be upcoming elections, and Germany the second in terms of quantities, the second country by military help after the United States. So it's a difficult situation for President Zelensky, and there is a possibility that he will have to take unpopular decisions in future, which will not increase the public support of him, but we have, being honest, we have no way in Ukraine, because capitulation to Russia means that Russians will occupy more and more Ukrainian territories, because they want to Ukraine to give up them territories which are not yet occupied by Russian forces. Parts of Zaporizhia region, parts of Donetsk region, parts of Lugansk region, and parts of Kherson region. It means that Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian army will have to leave Kherson and give up this regional center to Russians, and Ukrainian population will not accept such conditions, and President Zelensky will not accept such conditions, because he understands that it will be a suicide, actually,
Yes,
political
yes.
suicide for him if he will accept such conditions. So the future is really unclear for Ukraine. But from other point, I hope that President Trump will at least get access to some secret data. He will understand the real state of Russian economy and real state of Russian military power. He will stop listening for Elon Musk, and he will start listening for United States intelligence, and he will understand that Russia is not as powerful as they try to make themselves in Twitter, and with the stable support from United States, they will not be able to occupy more and more Ukrainian territories before the Russian economy will collapse. And there is a real scenario that in 2025 the Russian economy at least will collapse. There are numerous signs of that from all different sources, from Ukrainian intelligence, from Russian opposite leaders, from Russian economists. So let's see what will be in Russia.
Ivan, just building on your point, using a historical analogy, in 1985, now previously, when I was in graduate school, believe it or not, we were given an open source study by the CIA that basically predicted that the Soviet Union by 1985 would reach a breaking point in its economy using the sources that they had available. And sure enough, in 1985, President Gorbachev was given a report from the KGB but analyzing the American Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars. And their analysis, the KGB's analysis, was that the United States would eventually be able to block 90% of Soviet missiles in a first strike, and that there was no way that the Soviet Union could keep up with this capability. Interestingly enough, at that point, the Soviet Union's economy was starting to reach its breaking point, and Gorbachev was frantic to try to convince Ronald Reagan to give up SDI. When Reagan refused to give up SDI but stuck to his position, then all of a sudden you saw the Soviet Union making major arms control concessions, such as the INF Treaty and other things. And of course, several years later, you had the Soviet Empire buckling and collapsing, and its Eastern European allies, former Warsaw Pact members leaving the alliance and so forth. And so there is an analogy here. Russia is reaching a breaking point, and that it will reach its culminating point next year. And now it's an interesting contest between the outgoing Biden administration rushing military aid to Ukraine as much as possible, the incoming Trump administration gaining more awareness, situational awareness, as they get briefed on all the things that are going on behind the scenes, and the Ukrainian and now the X factor is the ability of the Ukrainian military to take what it has been given, and can they, in this interim period or in 2025, put together a counteroffensive effort which will dramatically improve its situation on the battlefield. My bet is still on Crimea. However, there are a number of other things which are going on, which are all coming together. I'll loosely refer to it as what the Soviets used to call the correlation of forces. The correlation of forces is steadily moving in favor of Ukraine, and Russia is trying to force the issue, force a decision in its favor before the opportunity vanishes completely. That is my perception of it.
Excellent. Before we will finish our program, I would like to thank you very much. And I would like to remind you that I have an upcoming trip that we will have the show on Friday, as usual. But then for 1 week, we will have no shows, neither Tuesday nor Friday. Then we will come back. Then we will come for Tuesday. So it will be already 11th, I believe, December 11th.
17th, December 17th.
17th.
Yeah.
Okay, what's today? Today is 4th?
Today is 4th, yes.
4th.
Oh.
Okay.
Today's 3rd, actually. 3rd, whatever.
Okay, so it will be 17th. Ivan, you're right. Thank you so much. So on 17th, we will have show. And then the next show will be on Christmas Day, 24th. Okay, so we will have Tuesdays. Ivan, I hope you will be able to accommodate the upcoming shows as well. In this case, thank you very much, everybody, and Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Glory to Ukraine. Bye-bye, everybody.